there and ask people, we have this kind of package. How do we make our people achieve? So we should be part of a solution. It's not about, let's not criticize the paper, but let's get a solution to what we should do to our people. Bish?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name, for record purposes, is Roland Njomujeni, and I represent the people of Ruchiga. Right Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Minister for bringing this report to us. And as you have rightly guided, it is very important that we get solutions to some of these problems. But most important, Right Honorable Speaker, it is a challenge for teachers to be registered by the Ministry of Education and Sports. And that challenge cannot be discussed here because it is like a systemic challenge that the Ministry of Education needs to look at and ensure that teachers are registered, Right Honorable Speaker. Now, if it is a criteria for accessing the money by the Ministry of Gender that someone must be registered, and yet it is not the problem of the teacher not to be registered by the Ministry of Education, then it becomes restrictive, it becomes unfair. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, we are all aware that it is not only the problem of internet in the rural village, in the rural areas, but also electricity. You find that there are some areas that have no power. People do not have access to not only internet, but also power. So when you say, when the ministry says that the data should be uploaded on the system, on the electronic system, and yet these people lack internet, they lack electricity, it becomes very unfair to them. And going forward, I think, my suggestion as a solution is that we resort to the manual way of doing things. The 2 minutes are not over.
What is the manual way you want us to do?
Yes, the manual way is registering these teachers in the registers, in the books, so that at the district level, someone can go there and know that in this district, there is this number of private teachers with all their details, instead of trying to introduce something that is very cumbersome to our teachers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Veronica?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and Minister, for that statement. But Minister, do we have all the data of the registered teachers per district? I think we can use the DEOs from different districts to help us get that data. And if possible, we can go the way the previous MP has given. We go manual, we get the DEOs. If yes, I think we can use the DEOs to reach the beneficiaries, but with the poor internet and the power shortages in our districts and villages. And the good thing the minister pointed that first come, first serve. When we go with that, Madam Minister, most of the beneficiaries are going to miss out. The money is going to go to those who are able, who have internet, but the most vulnerable are going to miss out because they are those ones who are in the villages, who don't have electricity, who don't have internet, and they can't access computers to register. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Emmanuel Fortunate. Where is Fortunate?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, in this House, we have an experience of such registration for cash transfer. You know, when there was the registration for people living within municipalities for the COVID relief, we know what happened. So I don't think we should go that way. I want to support my colleague from Rukiga who said we need to do first a manual registration. The Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development has a network of community development officers and other local government staff spread all through the country. That system should be used to register people in the different areas. And you know for sure that even the registration of the schools themselves have problems. So let us go deep, use our system, go in the manual way, and if eventually there should be a setup within the district to now register on the system, that should be fine. But at the local level, let's do the manual registration. I thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert, Brenda.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, the minister talked of giving 100,000 to the teachers. You remember, during COVID-19 money transfer, the community were also given 100,000. Right Honourable Speaker, there's a tendency with the community not to respect our teachers. Currently in the villages, every cheap things they associated to our lovely teachers. I feel, Right Honourable Speaker, let teachers be given slightly higher amount than the community. At least we can go for 200,000 for our teachers. You know, when we keep on comparing our teachers with the local person in the villages, Right Honourable Speaker, it may make people never to continue respecting our teachers. So I pray the minister, let the figure be slightly higher than the one in the community. Second, Right Honourable Speaker, the opening statement of the Honourable Minister, she said, following the successful COVID-19 money transfer to the community, Right Honourable Speaker, the other exercise was not successful at all. Money went to the hands of those ones who are not supposed to receive money. For example, in northern Uganda, many people received the money. The community development officers were among the least. Honorable councillors were among the least of those who received the money. And the poor people, the border, the women who are selling in the markets, they did not receive the money. So let the process be properly and very transparent. Finally, many of our teachers are not registered, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Minister, one thing that you need to appreciate, the previous program was maybe 20% successful. 20%. You're here to get a report. The money that was meant for cities instead went to villages. The rightful people did not get the money. So let's not say that because the other one was successful, the other one was unsuccessful. The rightful people did not get the money. And when you look at the borders, now let's not equate our teachers with the borders. We are what we are because of teachers. You cannot give a teacher 100,000 when you give a border 100. And one thing you need to know in the last program, the people who were registering the beneficiaries would first get 30,000 from that person, and then for you to take the 70. So there was a lot of corruption in that one. So we need to understand, maybe we would borrow some ideas on what members are saying. We may need to go manual. Identify the schools. People should go there and know if there are 10 schools in the Bukedia district, you have technical people. You have members of parliament here. Yes,
Procedure.
Emat.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I rise on procedural matter. This is a very interesting and very important subject we are discussing. Right Honourable Speaker, Parliament budgeted money to help the rural people who are suffering from COVID. And we were aware when some members of parliament went back to their respective constituencies, they found that people who were supposed to receive the money did not receive money. And we had all the evidences and facts to prove that there were many people, deserving people, never got money. Right Honorable Speaker, we now have another avenue open. I'm now suspicious. Are there some people in government who just find opportunity of getting free cash? Then they go there and they know how to handle it, or what? Because we should get in this parliament a report of what happened with the first lot of cash distribution. We want to know, and there must be a report where somebody is responsible. How much money was budgeted? Who got the money rightly? Who got it fraudulently? How many people were locked up? How many officials ate? And how much? We want those details. Now again, we have opened another avenue, cash distribution. Right Honorable Speaker, allow me to record on this floor that I reject this move. I reject it. Let it be on record of what I refuse. Because the teachers, the private school teachers, have a private school association. They have their data. So why is it that you are now going, now you have to register, then you have to bring your data to the ministry, this ministry, then it must be assessed, then it must be approved, and really, by the time your name enters the data, you are probably paid a lot, maybe more than you would have got. I know the system. Right Honorable Speaker, I would want the government to come. I appreciate what they are doing. I appreciate their concern for the teachers. But let them come with the right mechanism where we are sure that this money will reach the targeted persons. Please, because we are fed up with this kind of reckless eating. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, we instituted an audit on the previous process. The audit was done by joint Park local government and Park Central. And the reports are ready. Can we first have those reports presented to this House tomorrow so that we know the direction we are taking? That does not stop us from debating. Let's finish the debate. But before the money is disbursed, let's first see the mistakes that were made so that we are able to correct the mistakes. Shadow?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. First of all, I want to thank the Minister for the statement. I have a few questions. I want to know from the Minister why the pre-primary teachers were left out, because actually it is under private management totally. And also, does this grant has timely? If the donor is saying that the whole process should end by February, and by now you haven't even had many teachers register, what is going to happen? So we need clarification on that. And also, Right Honorable Speaker, the Minister should know that most of private teachers are paid cash. But on the requirements, you find that they need bank statements, payslip, rosters. At the end of the day, that's why you see only have 7,000 teachers when you need 300 teachers. This is very, very evident because we know what happens in private schools. You will not be able to realize the number if you don't loosen the requirements for this money. And also, you should know that most of the beneficiaries in the last disbursements were not those that were targeted. Right Honorable Speaker, it's very bad that the Minister of Education is not here, because we would discuss this in their presence. They are the ones who are supposed to feed the Minister of Gender, but most of the critical issues that must go to them are falling on empty, because there's collapse of this system. Remember, in the last year, the ministry was re-registered.
Tinker. But
thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the issue that I wanted to raise was concerning a number of teachers who are not captured by the current system. And largely the teachers that are employed in the private sector. Many of them you'll find when they are not registered, but they are doing a very good work. And for the record, to confess, I would say the number of teachers who taught me in primary school, I don't remember, except for the headmaster, I don't remember anyone even being registered. So I would want the Honorable Minister to tell us the strategy she has put in place to make sure that those wonderful teachers who are not registered, they are equally going to be captured. Two, the issue had the amount of money which my colleague has raised, but also the frequency. At least we should say if they missed 2 years and we are proposing 200, they receive it in at least two installments. 200, then another lot, 200. To really show some kind of seriousness. And we will deploy heavily surrounding these reckless eaters, because what Honorable Senior Cecilia said, they are really reckless. I know they are going to jump into this money. At the end of the day, we will see no money. And they will bring accountability to the House. So, honorable members, you have to be very, very vigilant. These are really reckless eaters.
Thank you. Shadow, can you finish? Shadow had something. Just a minute, I want to get one statement from Shadow.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I was raising an issue like in last year. The Minister of Education, the Minister in his statement to the Committee of Education, he informed us that they're actually re-registering all schools in Uganda, meaning that they have the details. If you re-register a school, you will get all the details, and it will be very easy to access the teachers within that school. I see a struggle here under the Ministry of Gender because they don't have the data. We need, Right Honorable Speaker, to compel the Minister of Education also to make a statement in regards to this, because you see gaps, and at the end of the day, the teachers will not benefit because of those gaps created within the Ministry of Education. So that's one of the prayer. And finally, Madam Speaker, I want to thank Give Directly, because actually this is the organ that is giving this money, the 30 billion. Initially, it was supposed to give 57 billion in the year 2020 to help other sectors or people who are affected by COVID. But due to a recommendation from the Uganda NGO Bureau, they said that they didn't want them to interfere with government projects and policies, and then they had to be suspended. But now that it has been allowed, I want to thank them, because this is not government money, but donor money. We want to thank them for thinking about the teachers, because this government has even failed to realize the 20 billion that it promised.
Even if it is donor money, it is donated to government of Uganda.
Yes, but Madam Speaker, the President pledged 20 billion even to date.
Yes. Can I just get one?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. First of all, I'm happy that you have caught your eye even after I have to put others are standing up. I would like to thank the Minister for the report. I would like to ask the Minister to be considerate. The person who is speaking is here. Speaking while I'm seated. To consider special needs teachers and to be deliberate about generating a register for special needs teachers. I agree with the members that 100,000 is very little money, but it is so little for a special needs teacher because a regular teacher would take about a few hours with a learner, but a special needs teacher who is teaching a blind child, a deaf child, a child with intellectual disabilities spends a lot of time with this learner. So I would like to ask the ministry that there is a more special consideration. So if the regular teacher is going to be paid, for example, 200,000, can we have an addition for the special needs teacher? But can we also be deliberate about generating a register for special needs teachers so that the children, the learners with disabilities are not left out, but also that these special needs teachers are motivated? I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable members, I listened to the minister's statement, and I noted so far it is only 2.3% of the teachers that will be eligible to be paid, that will be beneficiaries to this money. And whereas the minister is saying we should do the mobilization on the teachers, the other things that have been mentioned, the matter of electricity, the matter of internet, the issue of, it is an interministerial program where we are saying education should have been together with you for you to get the right data, the right people to benefit out of this. I don't know what direction we are going to take on this matter if this is what it is. Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I rise in accordance with Rule 59. But before I move the motion, I want to inform the House that we did have a COVID relief fund. And as you rightly said, Right Honorable Speaker, the Committee on the Public Accounts Committee and the Local Government Committee both went out to the field to verify beneficiaries of these COVID funds. Right Honorable Speaker, it was surprising. Our report is ready, but surprising that teachers on the lists in some districts, you would find teachers, people listed as teachers, and when you call, it is an old woman who knows nothing about the school we are actually talking about. That is what was happening in some situations. So people were merely being listed as teachers and to benefit. So likely the same may happen. So Right Honorable Speaker, this particular statement by the Honorable Minister is important. But I want to move, Right Honorable Speaker, in accordance with Rule 59C, D. So, sorry, 59C, that it's a motion for adjournment of debate, that the report of the Public Accounts Committee, together with the Local Governments Committee, that went out to verify the beneficiaries of the relief fund, be presented, discussed, and then thereafter we can conclude debate on this particular statement of the Honorable Minister. The report actually was ready by October last.
Members, we are saying we will continue with the debate. However, we need a report on the cash that went out first for us to know the mistakes that happened. Let's not give out money just like that, and then tomorrow again you come lamenting in this house. You're representatives of the people outside there. Is that motion seconded? Is the motion seconded? Yes, Lillian?
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker, is only prudent that we don't do the same thing and expect different results. I rise up to second the motion that we suspend discussion until we have the report brought in the House.
Yes, Honorable Shadow Attorney General.
Yes, right, Honorable Speaker, I second the motion for two good reasons. One, we are not terminating the debate, but only staying it for a while. Two, it is important that we get a comprehensive report from across the affected ministries, including local government, so that we address the issues that arose in the last cash handout.
Members, this is an interministerial program. It concerns local government, gender, education, many ministries, ICT, all of that. So when you start murmuring not seconded, you don't know what you're talking about. Huh? It is a very serious matter. We are suspending this motion. We are suspending a debate. Clerk, we need PAC and local government to present their report on Thursday, and then we'll debate the report together with this one. We'll continue with the debate. Thank you. The Minister of Energy called me. Members, honorable members who are here, I see Aisha going. We have appointments committee on Friday at 9, but you can still fast stay. Members, we have, yes?
Madam Speaker, in our rules, the appointment committee is supposed to be briefing Parliament. Sometime back, Mr. Vyava Shaija was reappointed when he was over 68. Clause 21 in the Prisons Act says when you clock 60, you retire. If you clock at midnight, the following day you hand over office. We did not have an opportunity because that report never came. Now that you have said the appointments committee is meeting, I hope it is not going to approve a person who, in total violation of the Prisons Act, continues being in office. Madam Speaker.
I am the chair of the appointments committee. I'm not sure whether you should discuss what is in our committee in the House for now. Members, we'll do what the Constitution allows us to do without fear or favor. The next item that we have is a statement on fuel. Very, very important statement. However, the minister called me and said they are signing the agreement in Kololo and she would prefer to deliver the statement herself. And that is also an interministerial statement of Minister of Health and Minister of Energy. So I would request we push that item to tomorrow together with our report. Because in the process when the fuel prices went up and like there was nothing that was happening, we sanctioned the committee of tourism to go to the field. So we'll discuss that item together with the committee report. Tomorrow, can we have the next item?
Item number 5, Bill second reading, the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021.
Honorable Minister,
Right Honourable Speaker, I beg your indulgence to, before I read this bill, to record my condolences together with those other members of parliament and others who have recorded theirs on the various losses of our members and other previous members in the recent times. I want to extend my personal condolences to the families and the family of Parliament. Right Honourable Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled the Landlord and the Tenant Bill 2020 be read for the second time. I beg to move.
Honorable members, the Landlord Tenant Bill 2021 was tabled for the first reading on 29th September 2021 and was referred to the Committee of Physical Infrastructure. The committee considered the bill. The report was uploaded on your laptops, on your iPads, and I hope the members have taken time to internalize the report. And the bill is now ready. Is the motion of the minister seconded? Is it seconded? Yes. Seconded by Honorable Musasisi, Honorable Bahati, Honorable Kwalinga, Honorable Betty, Abe, Azar. Who? Obiga, Roland, Moma. Minister, would you like to speak to your motion? That's fine.
Right Honourable Speaker, I want to thank members for the almost unanimous support of my motion. I said almost. Right Honourable Speaker, this bill arose from a bill which was tabled in this House in the 10th Parliament. And by then, there was a bill tabled, the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018. And Parliament passed the bill, send it over to the President for assent as the Landlord and Tenant Act 2019, because it is spilled over from the year 2018 to 2019. But unfortunately, it was taken over by time, and by the time the President returned it to Parliament, it was the time over for the 10th Parliament, which should have approved it. Now, the President returned it for two reasons. One was his concern over the definition of the premises in that bill. He felt the premises defined then was restrictive because it only talked of business premises. But now, because of the changed situation relating to the growth of e-commerce and e-business and COVID, many people are operating from the homes and from their residences, and they are doing business. Therefore, it means that what used to be referred to as residences are gradually becoming business premises as well. So there's a mixed content in relation to what is now called premises regarding residences and business premises in the traditional way that we know them. So the President wanted us to refine that definition so that we take concern of what is now the use of the premises. Secondly, the President's concern was in Section 13 of the then bill, which talked about, as I said, the residential premises. That has already been done. The second one is concerned about, just 1 minute.
Honorable Minister, can you summarize? The rest will come on the report.
I wanted to quote the section.
No, the chairperson will bring it on.
Will bring out.
Yes.
Now, therefore, the bill was saved by this Parliament under their resolution at the beginning of the 11th Parliament with other bills, and as the Speaker has already said, passed over to the committee, and the committee took advantage to consider other provisions which is allowed within our rules of procedure. Hence, what we are now calling the Landlords and Tenants Bill 2021.
Thank you.
I therefore move that we consider the bill accordingly. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now invite the chairperson of Physical Infrastructure to come and present the report. The report was uploaded.
Thank you, Right Honorable Deputy Speaker. The honorable members, allow me to lay on table the report of the Committee on Physical Infrastructure on the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021.
Please,
I beg to lay. Madam Speaker, allow me also lay the minutes of the committee. I beg to lay.
Please lay.
Madam Speaker, I beg to present the report on the Committee on Physical Infrastructure on the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021. The content of the table, we will not go there. Since it's uploaded, let me go straight to the introduction. The Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 was read for the first time on Wednesday, 29 September 2021, and referred to the Parliamentary Committee on Physical Infrastructure for consideration. In accordance with the Rule 129 and Rule 189C of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament, the committee scrutinized the bill and now presents this report to the House for consideration. Background. The relationship between landlord and tenant is currently governed by the Rent Restriction Act, Cap 231, the Distress for Rent, in bracket, Bailiffs Act Cap 76, which were enacted in 1949 and 1933, respectively, and the principles of contract law These statutes are outdated and are, excuse me, Right Honourable Speaker. These statutes are outdated as new issues that require regulation in the landlord and tenant relations have emerged since their enactment. As a result, there is lack of proper regulation of the relationship and hence disharmony among the key players and disruptions of the industry. It is against this background that the government introduced the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 with the following objectives. A, to regulate the relationship between the landlord and the tenants. B, to reform and consolidate the law relating the renting of premises. C, to provide for responsibilities of landlords and tenants in relation to the renting of premises. And finally, to provide and to provide for related matters. A similar bill entitled the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018 had been presented to the Tennis Parliament. It was considered and passed by the Parliament with some amendments and with confirmation that it complied with human rights, the sustainable development goals, and it addressed the gaps in the existing law. In accordance with Article 91 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018, as passed by Parliament, was sent to President for assent on 5th May 2019. However, His Excellency the President, in his letter dated 27th October 2020, the Right Honourable Speaker returned the bill to Parliament requesting for consideration in the following areas. 1. Clause 2 of the bill provides for the interpretation of the meaning of business premise and residential premises in view of the changes in the working environment as a result of COVID-19. The President proposed that the interruptions therein should factor in an emerging trend of home office and homestay tourism. As more business professionals and e-commerce enterprises switch to home working on account of COVID-19, the definition of residential premises should be expanded to accommodate a mixed use of houses for residential and office businesses that do not require physical interface with customers. 2. Clause 15.1 provides that tenants should not use rented premises or permit their use in a manner that causes a nuisance to any occupier of the neighboring premises. This clause presumes that physical planning by local government will adhere to separation of the residential and commercial areas and will do the same in their issuance of trading license to avoid situations whereby one licensed commercial activity ends up becoming a nuisance to another activity that is equally licensed by the same local government, in addition not enforcing noise pollution. Bylaws and standards is currently a major nuisance and public health concern for the majority of urban dwellers. Attached here with Annex 1, Roman 1, Annex 1, is His Excellency the President's letter dated the 27th October 2020, addressed to the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament. Roman 2, Annex 2, is the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018 as passed by Parliament and sent to His Excellency the President for assent. The Tenancy Parliament elapsed before considering the bill. In accordance with Rule 235 of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament, the Right Honourable Speaker directed all bills that elapsed with the 10th Parliament but are still relevant should be reintroduced to the House. The Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 was thus read for the first time on 29 September 2021 and referred to the Committee of Physical Infrastructure for consideration. The initial instruction was that the committee should limit itself to His Excellency the President's concerns. In the course of its deliberation, however, the committee noted that there were some changes to the bill that made it difficult from the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018 as passed by Parliament and sent to His Excellency the President for assent. The basis on which he raised the concern and returned the bill to Parliament for consideration of particular clauses. It was against this background that the committee sought permission from Parliament on 22nd November 2021 to consider the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 in its totality and for more time to consider the bill. The request was granted. The committee thus considered the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 and hereby presents its report to the House for consideration. The methodology: the committee perused the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 to consider His Excellency the President's concern as contained in his letter to the Right Honourable Speaker dated 27th October 2020 on the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018 as passed by Parliament. The committee also held a consultative meeting with key stakeholders, namely Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, the sponsor of the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021, Uganda Electricity Regulation Authority, the regulator of electricity sector in Uganda, Umeme Limited, the largest distributor of electricity to Ugandans, Kampala Cadres Advocate Forum, CAFO, a registered non-profitable forum that was formed by Uganda traders operating in the arcades of Kampala to organize themselves and promote conducive trade environment, increase business opportunities, have good trade order in the city, and create good working relationship with the government, KCCA, and landlords. The committee also interacted with the landlords and the Developers Association, an association of landlords and real estate developers predominantly around Kampala. Kampala State Traders Association, CASITA, a business association in Uganda aimed at facilitating trade, bringing together the business community and mobilizing them into a viable, organized, and social sustainable marketplace. Received the considerable written submission from Karungi Estate Limited. Committee observations and recommendations. 1. Issues that emerged from engagement with the Ministry of Lands and Housing. The committee found that there were differences between the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 and the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018 as passed by Parliament and sent to the President for assent. The affected clauses were as follows. 1, 2, 3.2, clause 9.2, clause 13, clause 16.2, clause 26.2, clause 27.1, clause 31.1, clause 31.6, clause 46.2, and clause 53D. The committee, however, noted that 1. Whereas the differences in clause 1, 2 on the definition of business and residential premises, 3, 2, clause 16, 2, clause 27, 1, clause 31, 1, clause 46, 2, and clause 53D were substantive. These identified in clause 2 on definition of currency points. This identified in clause 2 on definition of currency points, 9.2, 13, 26.2, and 31.6 were alterations arising from legislative drafting. Roman 2. The differences in clause 2 on the definition of residential premises, clause 16.2 and clause 53D were to accommodate the concerns of His Excellency the President. Roman 3, the substantive differences were as follows. The Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 excludes the word "a person" in the definition of the word business, thereby excluding activities that are carried on by one person. The Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018, as sent to the President for assent, had defined business to inter alia, including business carried out by a person.
There's a procedural matter.
Right Honorable, since the report was uploaded, wouldn't it be procedurally right for the chairperson to summarize?
Chair, can we look at your recommendations? Summarize it.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. That's going to make my work easy. If now that you don't need the observations, I'll go straight to the recommendations.
Right.
Hmm?
Yes, procedure.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. As you allowed an IT expert in Parliament, you will realize that many of our gadgets go to the IT expert for correction. And in that case, it is wrong to presume that
so
every
you mean you
gadget
can't see
has
your work? I mean the document. You have the work. You see, for you, you're a doctor.
I beg your pardon.
You're a doctor. You don't know the IT things. If the rest are seeing, then for you, you're used to seeing patients. Honourable Member, can you go ahead?
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Now that we are undergoing to recommendations, the committee recommends that clause Roman 1, clause 2, specifically on the definition of currency point, clause 9.2, 13, and clause 26.2 of the Landlord and Tenant Bill, Bill 2021, be adopted. Roman 2, the content of clause 2, specifically definition of business, clause 1.2, clause 3.2, clause 7.1, and clause 31.1 of the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 revert to what is contained in the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2018 as passed by Parliament, sent to the President for assent and returned to Parliament by President for by President for consideration. 2, say I go to recommendations. Recommendation on the President's letter, the committee recommends that the sub-clause 16 to be deleted. It be deleted. On the issues that the issue that emerged from interaction with other stakeholders, the committee recommends that included electricity and so on. The committee recommends that clause 12 should be deleted. On parking space, I mean on other extra expenses, parking space, the committee recommends that the aspect of parking space should be agreed upon by the landlord and the tenant and clearly stated in the tenancy agreement. On issues of toilet facility, the committee recommends that the committee recommends that the clause 12 be deleted. On payment of goodwill by tenants to the landlords, the committee recommends that the payment of goodwill be by tenants to the landlords be outlawed. On receipting of rent payments, the committee recommends that the bill be amended to provide for amount paid and the duration covered by the said amount. Honourable members, on this one, we realized when we interacted with the stakeholders that downtown, most of the tenants, they pay. But when they pay, they get somebody just writes that you have cleared. He gets him a receipt saying cleared, no amount, no what and what have you. So we are saying that no, the issue must be completely handled with money stipulated. On the tenants agreement, the committee proposes that the bill should allow the freedom of contract and uphold the right of parties to determine the terms of their tenancy. Circumstances under which the tenant may repay the promise, the committee proposes that the bill should be amended to 1. Provide for a fair time frame between a notice to the landlord alerting him of the need for a given repair and the commencement of repair works by the tenant. Roman 2, the cost of the repair must be based on the ongoing marketing rates. Increase of rent. The committee proposes that the minimum period of notice for increase in rent should be amended to provide for a shorter period of 60 days. That's not of increase of rent. Failure to pay rent by tenant and claims by rent areas. The committee proposes that in order to save the landlord from further financial losses, the bill should allow the landlord to re-enter the promise and take possession thereafter in the presence of the local authorities without prejudice to the right to recover the rent areas. Termination after notice. The committee proposes that a new subclause be provided to cover this scenario. The committee proposes pertaining the termination of tenancy in a business premise should be left to the tenancy agreement. Termination by abandonment. The committee proposes that the bill should empower the landlord to recover any accrued rent and charges in such circumstances. Challenging of termination of a tenancy agreement in court. The committee proposes that the bill be amended to provide equal protection to both the landlord and the tenant. Unlawful eviction of tenant. The committee proposes that the bill should be amended to restrict sanctions to compensatory damages, subjecting tenants to annoyance. The committee proposes that the clause be deleted. We looked at it and it said both can, the landlord and tenant, both of them can equally be annoyed. Entry of rent promised by landlord. The committee proposes that the bill should be amended to permit entry into the rented premise by the landlord in emergency situations. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee recommends that the bill be passed subject to the proposed amendments. I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson of the committee. And as you hear, we've been having a landlord tenancy bill. What we are doing now is just to make some slight amendments. And that's what the chair is presenting. This bill came and was passed in the last parliament, but it was caught up by time under Rule 235, and that's how it was recommitted back to the committee. Yeah, on Thursday, when the document was laid on table, I asked members to go and read it. Any amendment that you feel you think should be put and is substantial, to pass it on in writing and do amendments. We wouldn't do amendments on of the clauses in the House because we constituted a team of Shadow Attorney General and this side to look at the amendments, including the Minister, and we would maybe want to hear from them. Minister?
Right Honourable Speaker, we had consultations, and out of those consultations we agreed on quite a lot of provisions, and we're subject to your direction. We're ready to move to the committee stage if you so direct. Thank you.
A leader of opposition and any other member?
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the committee for the report, but to guard against exploitation of tenants, Madam Speaker, I hold a view that this recommendation, especially to delete clause 12, would be stayed because it is a bone of serious contention, Madam Speaker. You know very well that the old law of 1999 Electricity
Honorable Lob,
Act.
that will be in, not Lob, yes, Lob. That will be at committee stage when we reach clause 12. Now you've taken us to committee stage. You'll bring your amendment when we are at committee stage on clause 12.
Much obliged.
Thank you. Yes, Attorney General.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, as you had directed, no amendment was brought to our attention by any member, especially those who are not members of the committee. We did consider the government concerns in respect of the report by the committee, and the committee did analyze the government concerns, and we had a win-win, and we should be able to pass this bill when we go to committee stage without much acrimony.
Honorable members, it's a very beautiful, especially new honorable members of parliament. It's a very beautiful thing for a bill to be passed when you're part of that bill. Part of the house, when the bill is passed, you'll say, I was part of that process. I just want to thank the people who are still here. That's what I want to say. I'm thanking you people. This is a very, very important bill. That for you to endeavor and stay and say, let's see the whole process. Those people outside there, the voters that we have, the landlords there, can make you not to come back or what. Some of us are still tenants. So I am very grateful you're here. I want to thank you so much. Honorable members, I put a question that the bill entitled Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 be read the second time. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay.
The landlord.
The ayes have it.
The Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021. Bills committee stage.
The Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021, Clause 1.
Clause 1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clause 1, 2. Insert the phrase.
Clause 1, subclause 2.
Subclause 2. Insert the phrase with approval of Parliament between may and by in the first line. Justification. The Parliament must be involved in disapplying the provisions of the Act from any particular premises. That's the justification, Madam Chair.
Minister.
Right Honourable Chair, we have no objection.
I put a question that clause 1 be amended as proposed. Clause 1 subclause 2 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay.
Clause 1 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 1 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2, interpretation still. Definition.
Can we first move to other clause, leave clause 2, because it is an interpretation. Go to clause 3.
Clause 3.
Clause 3, Chair.
Interpretation, clause 2.
Clause
No,
3, clause 3.
Clause 3. Clause 3, making of a tenancy agreement. One subclause 1. Insert the following phrase at the end of the provision, provided that where the parties shall have executed a tenancy agreement, the landlord-tenancy relationship between the parties shall be governed by the terms of the tenancy. Terms of the tenancy. It's 2, subclause 2. Insert the following phrase at the end of the provision, save that the parties may make some modifications accordingly. Justification: to allow the freedom of contract and they uphold the right of the parties to determine the terms of their tenancy, given the fact that terms may differ depending on the nature of the demised premises. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Minister.
Right Honorable Chair, both of those insertions are asserting to the freedom to contract, and we have no objection.
Thank you. I now put a question that clause 3 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay.
Clause 3 as
Ayes have
amended.
it. I now put a question that clause 3 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Clause 4, Chair. Clause 4 has no amendment. I put a question that clause 4 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay.
Clause 5.
I put a question that clause 5 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 6.
Clause 6, Chair.
Subclause 6. The tenancy shall reimburse the landlord within a period of 14 days after the notification to the landlord or to the same may be deducted from any rent advance already received by the landlord. Justification:
Can you read your clause well? Clause 6 says the implied terms of the fitness for human habitation. Subclause 1B.
Yeah, there was some confusion. Clause 6, implied terms as to fitness for human habitation. 1, subclause 1B. At the end of the provision, add the following phrase: save that the obligation shall be restricted the exterior of the premises and the common areas. Justification: during the term of the tenancy, the tenant is in occupation of the premise and has a duty to maintain the inside of the premise in good and attainable repair.
Subclause 4.
Subclause 4, the following should be included at the beginning of the clause: except in case of any emergency, a landlord may. Justification. There may be a situation where a remedial action is so urgent that it cannot wait for 24 hours, not like a flooding or sewage breakdown.
Minister.
Right, Honorable Chair, we agree.
I put a question that clause 6 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 6 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 6 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have
7.
it. Clause 7, Chair.
Clause 7, duty to keep promise in repair, subclause 1. At the end of the clause, add the following, save that the obligation shall extend to the exterior parts of the premise and common areas. Justification. During the term of tenancy, the tenant is in occupation of the premise and has a duty to maintain the inside of the premise in good and attainable repair.
I put a question that clause 7 be amended as proposed. Minister.
We have no objection, Chair.
I put a question that clause 7 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. I now put a question that clause 7 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 8.
Clause 8, Madam Chair. Exemption to duty of landlord to repair premises. 1, subclause 4. Insert the following at the beginning of the clause. Except in the case of any emergency. 2, subclause 6. The tenant shall reimburse the landlord within a period of 14 days after the notification to the landlord, or the same may be deducted from any rent advance already received by the landlord. Justification. Some numbers of days should be provided for landlord and tenant so that the law affords equal protection to both parties as enshrined in the Constitution.
Minister.
Chair, I agree with that amendment.
I put a question that clause 8 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 8 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 8 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 9.
The ayes have it. Clause 9, Chair.
Clause 9, circumstances where a tenant may repair premises. 1, subclause 1B. At the end of the provision, insert the following. After serving the landlord with 14 days prior notice of need for repairs and the cost thereof. Justification. Same number of days should be provided for landlord and tenant so that the law affords equal protection to both parties.
Subclause 3. Subclause 3.
2, subclause 3. Insert the following at the end of the provision. Provided that the tenant shall submit to the landlord supporting documentary proof as evidence of the cost of repair, and the cost thereof shall be required to be reasonable at the prevailing market rates. Justification. To avoid the exaggeration of claims being preferred against landlords by tenants in the same way clause 8(5) is worded.
Minister.
Chair, I agree.
I put a question that clause 9 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 9 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 9 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 10.
I put a question that clause 10 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 11.
The Chair.
Madam Chair, clause 11, void the terms and conditions in tenancy. The clause should start with the phrase, subject to clause 3(1). Justification. To avoid a contradiction in the law, with one clause upholding the right of the parties to contract and another taking away the right. Some tenancies may require technical advice which comes at a cost. The parties should retain the right to agree on how the cost should be apportioned.
Minister.
I agree.
I put a question that clause 11 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay.
Clause 11 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 11 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 12.
Leader of opposition, some order in the House. Respect yourselves.
Madam Chair, clause 12, provision of separate prepaid electricity meters. Delete clause 12. Justification. According to service providers, it is not practicable, and poses a technical difficulties given the building requirements in terms of wiring the unit of business premises.
I put a question that clause 9 be deleted as proposed. Minister, first Minister. Clause 12, provision for separate prepaid electricity meters.
Yes, Chair would propose these separate meters, but on a second thought, we realize that this provision will be best provided in the Buildings Acts and Regulations, and not in this law. Therefore, we concede. Do I agree?
Thank you.
Clause 13.
I put the question that the clause 9 be deleted. I mean clause 12 be deleted as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the aye, to the contrary aye. The ayes have it. Clause 13. Look at the Electricity Act before you start talking. Clause 13. Clause 13, I put a question that clause 13 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it. Clause 14. Chair.
Clause 14, utility charges for which landlord is reliable. Paragraph E. Delete and substitute with the following. In the case of sewerage disposal charges, the landlord and tenant may agree on the contribution to be made by the tenant. Justification. Sewerage disposal charges cannot practically be metered separately. It is only fair that the landlord and tenant be allowed to agree on a reasonable sum to be contributed by the tenant.
Minister.
We agree with that proposal.
I put a question that...
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have concern on clause 14, paragraph E. In that case where the sewage disposal charges are to be met by both the tenant and the landlord, I think it would be fair if that petty cost is met by the landlord as part of the rent. Thank you.
Is that what you do in actual fact as of today? How does the landlord come and pay for the sewage empty for yourself? we are making a law. We are not just doing something that what we think should be done. It is about the law. What does the law say about it? Who is responsible for what? Honorable members, we are maintaining clause 14 as it is. I put a question that clause 14 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. I now put a question that clause 14 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 15.
I put a question that clause 15 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 16.
Chair.
Clause 16, tenant not to cause a nuisance or interference. 1, clause 16.1, delete the phrase subject to subsection 2. Justification, it is not necessary to subject the clause to subjection 2 since the committee proposes to move an amendment to delete subsection 2. 2. Clause 16.2, delete the subclause 2. Justification. According to Section 3 of the Physical Planning Act 2010, the whole of Uganda was declared a planning area. Thus, the requirement not to cause a nuisance covers the whole country, and as such, there is no area in Uganda where a nuisance may be allowed as purported in subclause 2.
Minister.
We agree with the committee.
I put a question that clause 16 as amended as proposed.
Chair, I don't know how this clause is going to be enforced, because we have some premises which house hotels or entertainment enterprises. Now, these discos that are played up to midnight or the whole night, how do you handle? Because they are all over the place in urban centers. So I would want clarification from the minister how this clause is going to be enforced. Because now the burden is on the tenant to ensure that that nuisance is not caused. But if your premises is for entertainment and you are supposed to allow disco, dancing, and so on, how do you enforce? So I think let's not just make the law. Let's also care about how practical it will be in terms of implementation.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, the honorable member is right. It's a question of enforcement. First of all, we are legislating that whatever premises you have should not be a nuisance to anybody. That's the principle. It's not allowed. Why? Because we have now the National Physical Planning Act 2010, as you amended in 2020, and it provides that every area will be planned for a specific purpose. Now, if you plan a given area for residential areas, then there are standards which are expected under that regulations which will be made in the Physical Planning Act. And those must be followed both by the community and the local authorities. Now, our failure to implement does not absolve us of the responsibility of legislating to make sure that people are not inconvenienced. And indeed, this is happening, honorable members, in Uganda. I'm sorry to say there are certain places which have been turned into places of worship, which is good, but worship overnight, a lot of noise. Some are even in bars. And yes, these are not soundproofed. Not only soundproof, but they bring everybody. Thugs. That's a nuisance itself. So it scares people. Therefore, we have to look at first the regulations which will be made under this to make sure that local authorities enforce them and we all become part of the enforcement. So I believe it is possible.
Another information, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Honorable Baba.
What the Honorable Minister has said, there is also a law against noise in our legal system. I remember there was a High Court judge.
There is an environmental law. That is Kembabazi.
Yes, near Kembabazi.
Justice Katusi versus Kembabazi.
Yeah, he took
Amos.
He took that restaurant to court and he won the case.
Yes.
Against noise. Former leader, president of Democratic Party, Mzee Paul Semogerere, also complained, and the law was also applied somewhere in Kabusu. So there's this law to take care of nuisance people, only that it should be rigorously applied, because the level of noise in this country now, with the churches, with the balokoles, with the dancers, is terrible. Some of us can't sleep. Those should be applied rigorously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarification. Right Honorable Speaker, if I got the question from the Honorable Cecilia Ogwal, she was seeking clarification on implementation. Right Honorable Speaker.
Enforceability.
Yeah, and how will it be implemented? How is it feasible? Right Honorable Speaker, when you look at our communities where we live, what is going to happen after we have passed this law? Most of the places, the urban authorities planned poorly. And you find that the communities are living in these places. They gave licenses.
Honorable Commissioner, we passed a stage of debate when you're outside there admiring some people. We are now at committee level. I now put a question that clause 16 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and to the contrary nay.
Clause 16 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 16 as amended stands part of the bill, and those in favor say and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 17.
I put a question that clause 17 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 19.
The ones I'm just reading do not have amendments, but they have to appear in the bill. So you just don't keep quiet there. Clause 18, I put a question that clause 18 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. Very
Clause
good.
19.
The ayes have it.
Clause 19.
Clause 19, I put a question that clause 19 stands part of the bill, and those in favor say and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 20.
I put a question that clause 20 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 21.
I put a question that clause 21 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 22.
Clause 22 has an amendment. Thank you for waking up.
Clause 22, tenant to pay rent. Redraft clause 22 as follows. 22, tenant to pay rent. 1, a tenant shall pay rent on a date and in the manner agreed upon by the landlord and the tenant. 2, the landlord shall ensure a receipt upon payment of rent. Okay. The landlord shall issue a receipt upon payment of rent by the tenant. 3, the receipt issued in subsection 2 shall be in a form prescribed in a regulation issued by the minister. 4, a landlord renting out a business premise. Renting out a business premise in a city or a municipality shall provide a tenant with his or her bank account number into which all the rent payments may be deposited. Justification. To ensure that landlords present an accurate representation of what is paid in rent in a receipt. Two, to curb landlords renting out business premises in a city or a municipality shall provide a tenant with his or her bank account into which rent. This is repetition. That's the justification, Madam Chair.
Honorable Minister.
We agree with that proposal.
I put a question that clause 22 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay.
Clause 22 as amended.
I now put a question that the clause 22 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 23.
Chair.
Clause 23, determination of rent under a tenancy. Clause 23(2). The provision shall start with the words, save as may otherwise be agreed between the parties in their tenancy agreement. Justification. The law should uphold the freedom of parties to contract. It should be permissible for parties to mutually agree on the possibility of payment in Ugandan shilling equivalent to the USDs.
Honorable Minister.
I agree.
I put a question that clause 23 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay.
Clause 23 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 23 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay.
Clause 24.
I put a question that clause 24 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 25.
I put a question that clause 25 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 26.
26, Chair.
Clause 26, receipt for rent. Clause 26(2). Insert after the phrase prescribed form the words and shall include among others the amount and the period for which rent is paid. Justification. To emphasize the need to have the amount of rent and the period stated in the receipt to minimize conflicts. I beg to submit.
Minister.
I agree.
I put a question that clause 26 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay.
Clause 26 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 26 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 27.
Chair.
Clause 27, increase of rent. 1 subclause 1. The provision should start as follows. Save as may otherwise be agreed between the parties in their tenancy agreement. Insert the phrase with approval of Parliament after the word minister. Justification. The Parliament should be involved.
Repeat. Honorable wants to hear what you're saying.
The whole clause. Clause 27, increase of rent. 1 subclause 1. The provision should start as follows. Save as may otherwise be agreed between the parties in their tenancy agreement. Insert the phrase with approval of Parliament after the word minister. Justification. The Parliament should be involved in such critical changes in the principal legislation as a check on the utilization of powers of the ministers.
Subclause 2. Subclause 2.
2. 2. Subclause 2. Insert 6.
Let him finish
Let me
reading.
finish this.
And that's why I said whoever had an amendment should bring it up.
2. Subclause 2. Insert 60 in the place of 90. 60 in the place of 90. Justification. Parties may mutually agree on how rent should be increased, especially with long-term tenants. A 60 days notice is also reasonable in the circumstances.
Honorable Minister.
Honorable Chair, I agree on subclause 2, but on clause 1, when we had further consultations with the committee chair, we had reservations, because we think, yes, there may be a good reason to, that provision essentially is trying to protect the tenant from arbitrary increases at the will of the landlord. But we think bringing every change of that nature to Parliament all the time it happens would clog down the work of Parliament. And the best the minister could do is cover that under the regulations which the minister will issue. And these regulations, we think, from time to time when they are tabled in Parliament, will then cover the general principles and the latitude within which landlords in general can increase the rent, instead of every time coming to Parliament for a matter which we think you should be able to entrust your ministers with. So I think they agreed. I don't know what the position of the minister
so
is.
How should the amendment read like?
Well, we would want to retain the position as it was in 27 in the bill, where we're saying a landlord shall not increase rent at a rate of more than 10% annually, or such other percentage as may be prescribed by the minister by statutory instrument. And that's what we thought should remain. The contention here is that this should always be done with the approval of Parliament.
Honorable Nwagaba, can you make the proposal?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. That's what we agreed, except that the phrase, save as may otherwise be agreed between the parties in the tenants agreement, is to be maintained. We are only agreeing to deletion of the words with approval of Parliament.
Okay.
I agree to the proposal by the Shadow Attorney General.
Okay. So I put a question that clause 27, subclause 1, as amended by Honorable Nwagaba on a deletion of Parliament.
Chair, I don't see how the minister comes in. Because this is a tenancy between the landlord and the tenant. Why should the minister come in? So I think we should delete minister and Parliament as well.
Purposes of the Hansard, the amendment will read thus, and before I read it, I want to help Honorable Atim Ogwar that this particular provision is meant to curb unrestricted rent increment by landlords that would disfavor tenants. So there is some sort of rent restriction. And that's why we are leaving powers to the minister to prescribe the percentage that may not be gone beyond in increasing rent. But for purposes of the amendment, the sub-clause 27, sub-clause 1 will read thus: save as may otherwise be agreed between the parties in their tenants agreement, a landlord shall not increase rent at a rate of more than 10% annually or such other percentage as may be prescribed by the minister by statutory instrument.
Chair, Chair, I would rather that the minister prescribes through the regulation. I would not want the minister to be involved in this piecemeal kind of, tenant-landlord agreements. I would rather that the minister will come in through regulations, but not as it is put in here, Chair.
By the way, Honorable Cecilia, this is what has been in the bill. That is how the act has been. No, we are not amending.
For your information, Honorable Timogwar, a statutory instrument is a regulation. The regulation is actually the common legal jargon is statutory instruments, but those are the regulations.
Thank you for for helping Imat Cecilia for going to the law class. I put a question that the amendment in clause 27 as proposed by Honorable Nwagaba, those in favor say and to the contrary, nay. That is for clause 1. I put a question that clause 27, subclause 2, as proposed, be amended. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary, nay.
Clause 27 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 27 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary, nay.
Clause 28.
I put a question that clause 28 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 29.
I put a question that clause 29 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 30.
Clause 30, failure to pay rent by the tenant.
Clause 30, failure to pay rent by tenant and claims for rent arrears. Subclause 31. The provision should end with a proviso as follows. Provided that where the difficulty shall continue. The default shall continue for a period of more than 30 days, the landlord shall be entitled to re-enter the premise and take possession thereof in the presence of the area local council officials and the police without prejudice to the right to recover the rent arrears. Justification. A tenancy is primarily based on two things: occupation of the premises by the tenant against payment of rent the landlord. If the tenant cannot pay rent, then he or she cannot continue occupying the premise indefinitely until an order of eviction is obtained. This will defeat the whole purpose of renting out premises. I beg to move.
Honorable Minister.
I agree.
Thank you. I put a question that clause 30 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say and to the contrary, nay.
Clause 30 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 30 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 31.
31.
Clause 31, security deposit. Clause 31.6. Insert the phrase of the change at the end of the sub-clause. Justification for clarity at what the notice relates. I beg to move.
Honourable Minister.
I agree.
I put a question that clause 31 be amended as proposed. Those in favour say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 31 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 31 as amended stands part of the bills. Those in favour say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 32.
I put a question that clause 32 stands part of the bill. Those in favour say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 33.
I put a question that clause 33 stands part of the bill. Those in favour say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 34.
Clause 34, Chair, is a new clause.
New clause after clause 34. Insert a new clause after clause 34.2 as follows. Prohibition of goodwill. Unless otherwise agreed between the parties, an assignment of a tenancy or subrenting or execution of a new tenancy shall not be subject to requirement for payment of any sum of money constituting good to the landlord. Justification: to abolish goodwill payments since it is unpopular among tenants and treated as unfair.
Chair, during our discussions, the first discussions and subsequent discussions with the committee, we're of the view that goodwill, while it is a good business practice and it exists, it's not a fixed asset which you can easily put a value on. It is kind of flexible. And it's a good business practice between agreeing parties. And therefore, we don't think it should really be legislated per se in the main act. But since we're provided a freedom in the tenancy agreement, if they want to include an element of goodwill, that will be their freedom to contract. So we thought any references in this law about goodwill should have been deleted. And our proposal was that Section 34 remains as it is without reference to goodwill.
So you're saying we don't introduce sub-clause 2?
Sub-clause 2. It will read as it is now: invalid assignment and subletting of premises, an assignment of a tenancy or subletting of the whole or any part of the premises to a tenant without the consent of the landlord is invalid and immediately terminates the tenancy. Because it was trying to introduce a second provision, which we think is something which is fluid, and we should leave it out of the main act. It can be provided for in the tenancy by the individual people as they contract. So I don't know.
Section 34, clause 34. Yes. As it was.
We assert that 34 should remain as it is.
Without amendment.
Without amendment, yes.
I put a question that clause 34 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say unto the contrary nay.
Clause 35.
Clause 35, termination of tenancy to be in accordance with the Act. Insert at the end of the clause the following: or in according with tenancy agreement. Justification. The parties should reserve the right to make provision for termination in their tenancy, and the right should be respected. I beg to move.
Minister?
We agree.
I put a question that clause 35 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 35 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 35 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 36.
I put a question that clause 36 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 37.
I put a question that clause 37 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 38.
I put a question that clause 38 stands part of the bill, and those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 39.
Chair.
Clause 39, termination after notice. 1, subclause 39, 1. Insert the following phrase at the end of the provision, or with terms of the tenancy agreement. Justification. The parties should reserve the right to make provision for termination in their tenancy, and the right should be respected.
Subclause 5.
2, subclause 5. Delete the subclause 5. Justification. Termination should be catered for in the tenancy agreement. 3, subclause 39(7). A new subclause. Insert a new subclause 7 to read as follows. The issuance of notice of termination under subsection 1 shall not operate as an extinction of a landlord or a tenant's duty and the rights under the tenancy agreement in respect of which notice has been issued. Justification. This will ensure that the terms and conditions of tenancy agreement remain effective even during the notified period. I beg to move.
Chair. Minister.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. We agree.
I put a question that clause 39 as amended, be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 39 as
the ayes have it.
Clause 39 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 39 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 40.
40, Chair.
Clause 40, termination by abandonment. Subclause 1. Insert at the end of the provision the following. Save that such termination may be abandonment shall be without prejudice to the rights of the landlord to recover any accrued rent and charges. Justification. The landlord should be enabled to recover any accrued rent and charges from an abandoned tenancy.
Minister.
I agree.
I put a question that clause 40 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay.
Clause 40 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 40 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 41.
I put a question that clause 41 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 42.
Chair.
Clause 42. Tenant or landlord may challenge termination in court. Clause 42(4). Insert the phrase or landlord in quotation after tenant at the beginning of the subclause 4. Justification. The landlord should also enjoy the same right of appeal as the tenant. the right to appeal should be available for both parties and not only the tenant.
Minister?
It's a legal right to both parties. I agree.
I put a question that clause 42 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 42 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 42 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 43.
I put a question that clause 43 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it. 44.
Clause 44.
Chair.
Clause 44. Refusal by tenant to vacate premises after receipt of notice of termination. Subclause 1. Redraft the provision to read as follows. Where a tenant does not vacate the premises on the date specified in the notice of termination or upon breach, the landlord may thereafter re-enter the premises, provided that re-entry shall be effected in the presence of local council officials and the police. Justification: to avoid the scenarios where tenants will wait for notice to expire and refuse to vacate.
The Minister.
I agree.
I put a question that clause 44 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 44 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 44 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 45.
I put a question that clause 45 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, to the contrary nay. The ayes have it. 46.
Clause 46.
Chair.
Clause 46, unlawful eviction of tenant. 1, subclause 1. Insert the words or the terms of the tenancy agreement following immediately after the words in accordance with this act. 2, subclause 2. Insert the words or in terms of the tenancy agreement immediately after the words in contravention of this act. Delete criminal liability penalties and add that the tenant shall be entitled to pursue appropriate relief from court of law. Substitute the phrase not exceeding 250 currency points with the phrase equivalent 3 months rent payable. 3, subclause 3. Restrict it to only compensatory damages and remove criminal sanctions. Justification: penalties proposed should allow for compensatory option to cater for damages of breach, since this is a civil matter.
Chair, I agree on subsection 1 and 2, except that in 2, the relevant words amending are, in quotes, the tenant shall be entitled to pursue appropriate relief from a court of law. Those are the relevant amendment words. And in subclause 3, the relevant words are remove. There are no words which were proposed by the committee, and it should remain where it says the compensatory damages, because he has put the chair has put it in general words, but we're really talking about compensatory damages. So the amendment would read, if you allow me,
and remove criminal sanctions. And remove criminal sanctions.
No, we are removing criminal sanctions. They're not part of our... A court convicting a landlord under subsection 2 shall, in addition to any penalty imposed by the court, under the landlord, order the landlord to compensate the tenant for any damages arising from the unlawful eviction. And I think it should remain as it is. I think the committee was just making comments.
Yes.
They are not necessarily making a law. So I propose that it remains as it is. 46, subsection 3 remains as it is. Thank you.
So you want, Minister, you want to say there is no amendment in clause 46?
Clause 46, subsection
1,
there is an amendment.
Yes. 2,
I agree with that.
Yes, 2.
In 2, there is an amendment, but the phrasing is terms of the tenancy agreement in contravention of this act. And then you delete the rest. So it will read, subsection 2 will read, a landlord who evicts a tenant from the premises or requires, compels or attempts to require or compel the tenant to vacate the premises in contravention of this act commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 250 currency points or to imprisonment not exceeding 1 year or both. And I don't know where the words in contravention of this act, the committee was trying to establish, set the word or the terms. That is in contravention of the act or the terms of the tenancy agreement. Okay? That's where it will be inserted, those phrases in subsection 2. Yes, it's an insertion. It's okay with me, subject to what the Attorney General, the Shadow Attorney General is saying.
Thank you. If you've now considered, because we never addressed that, you had not raised an issue, because the principle is this should not be a penal law. So if you consider to the committee's proposals on sub-clause 1 and 2, then that's okay. But I would also invite you, Honorable Minister, to consider on sub-clause 3 by adding the words compensatory immediately before damages and after the word for any, so that it is not left to the discretion of court to be too wide. But if it is compensatory, then the court will look at the actual loss being suffered, maybe in terms of rent paid and the like, so that we capture the spirit.
Honorable Nwagaba, first read section 3. A court convicting
a landlord under subsection 2 shall, in addition to any penalty imposed by the court, order the landlord to compensate the tenant, or it's already there anyway.
Yes.
Compensate. It's okay, we could maintain it.
Let's reconcile this first, then you come. Is that okay?
That's okay with me. It's okay.
So
3 remains as it is.
3 remains. 1, 2, 3 remain.
Yeah.
With
the insertions are in 2.
On 2.
Yeah. 1 and 2. 1 and 2.
Yes. Okay. I put a question that clause 46 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 46 as amended.
And now put a question that clause 46 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. To the contrary, nay. The ayes have it. Yes, Jacob, sorry. Gilbert.
Gilbert, yeah. Thank you. Madam Chair, my concern was on clause 2, whereby the committee proposed that instead of a fine not exceeding 250 be replaced by the equivalent rent of 3 months. Madam Chair, this is very risky.
It has passed.
That's why I wanted to raise earlier, Madam Chair.
You can bring it later.
Pardon?
We can bring it later. You know, members, I asked you people to bring amendments. The amendments have not been brought. I gave the legal brains to look at this. The way Brenda is looking at me. I gave the legal brains to look at this, and it has been approved. And kindly, can we move on? Next.
Clause 47.
Clause 47.
Madam Chair, clause 47 is about goodwill, which we have agreed with the minister. We delete it. So this one is deleted. We go to clause 48.
On a deletion.
Clause 47.
I put a question that clause 47 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say, and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 48.
48.
Madam Chair, clause 48, subjecting a tenant to annoyance. Delete the entire clause 48, 1 and 2. Justification. The clause is so ambiguous that presupposes that it is only the tenant who can be annoyed by the landlord.
I put a question that clause 48 be deleted. Those in favor say, and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 49.
It's redundant, actually. Clause 49. I put a question that clause 49 stands part of the bill, and those in favor say, and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause
50.
Clause 50.
Chair.
Clause 50, entry of a rented premise by the landlord. Subclause 3. Replace subclause 3 with the following. Notwithstanding subsection 1, in the case of an emergency occurrence, a landlord may enter the premise without notice. Justification. To provide for entry by the landlord in the case of emergency, where no advance notice of entry is required. The subclause carries the same import, and it is similar to what is contained in clause 64. I beg to move.
Honorable Minister, that is entry to rented premises by the landlord.
I know members may feel what emergency is. Actually, that's the very nature of an emergency, that because you can't define it now, there is no harm if you put it there. Yes. So we conceded to that.
I put a question that
Chair.
clause 50 be amended as proposed. Those in favor say, and to the contrary.
Chair.
nay.
Clause 50 as amended.
I now put a question that clause 50 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say, and to the contrary, nay.
Clause 51.
I put a question that clause 51 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say, and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 52.
I put a question that clause 52 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 53.
I put a question that clause 53 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 54.
I put a question that clause 54 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 55.
Clause 55. I put a question that clause 55 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Schedule 1.
Schedule 1, I put a question that the first stands part of, Schedule 1 stands as part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary no. The ayes have it.
Schedule 2.
I put a question that Schedule 2 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Clause 2, the interpretation. Clause 2, the interpretation. That is the definition of business.
Madam Chair, we had an agreement with the minister on this one, and it will be prudent for him to come and give that definition he had. Correct.
Madam Chair, the definition we had on business was affected by our subsequent definition of a mixed premises, business. Here we're trying to say business includes trade, commerce, profession, employment, and any other activity carried on a person or a body of persons, whether corporate or unincorporated. But what we had proposed for the definition of a mixed premises would include mixed-use premises which are used simultaneously for both residential purposes and other purposes out of a home-based business. Now, we thought this is wider than when you go to specify now trade, industry, and so forth. So we had requested that the committee would drop that proposal of a separate definition of a business. That's, I think, what we had agreed. So there wouldn't be any definition as we had specified, I think, yes.
So does that mean we are not making an amendment on this?
We're not? No. We were not, according to the discussion we had. But of course, if you see, when you look at the present interpretation definition in the Act which we propose, business premises in relation to the tenants means premises occupied by the tenant for the purpose of a business carried out by him or her. This is a business premises. Now, business in our definition includes trade, profession or employment, and includes any activity carried on by a body or persons whether corporate or incorporate. As we put it here in the interpretations, we think this is wider than the one which the committee has proposed. So they were agreed that there will be no amendment of this definition of business, and we will carry on the definition as it is in the Act. So essentially we're saying no amendment in that respect.
Madam Chair, that is the position we agreed on, bearing in mind the definition of business premises and the definition of residential premises in bringing in the concept of mixed-use premises.
What about the one of goodwill? It was dropped also. Okay.
Yes, goodwill we had dropped for the reasons that I stated earlier.
Then I put a question that clause 2 stands part of the bill. Those in favor say and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
The title.
Chair. I put a question that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye and to the contrary.
Honorable Chair, if you can get your intelligence, the committee had proposed an amendment on the long title, and with the permission of the chair, if I can read it. You were saying
let the chair read, then you.
Madam Chair, we had a discussion on this. A long title. Insert the phrase residential, commercial, and industrial, the word premises in the second and last line. Justification: the scope of premises should not be restricted to residential and business premises, and it should cover residential, commercial, and industrial premises. I believe we were deleted, we are talking of mixed. So the title, there is somehow we agreed with it.
We did agree that the interpretation section itself and what the bill entirely covers is enough. So no need to amend the wrong title, no need to do anything with the title.
Madam, amending the title.
Minister?
That's the position, and I agree.
I put a question that the long title of be part of the bill. Those in favor say and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Motion for the House to resume.
Honorable Minister.
Right, Honorable Chair. I beg to move that the House resumes and the committee of the whole House reports thereto.
Honorable members, I put a question that the House do resume and the committee of the whole House reports thereto. Those in favor say aye and to the contrary, nay.
Report from the Committee of the Whole House.
Honorable Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the bill entitled the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2020 and passed the clauses with some amendments. All the schedules with amendments, the long title. I beg to report.
Thank you.
Motion for adoption of the report from the Committee of the Whole House.
Honorable Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the report from the Committee of the Whole House be adopted. I beg to move.
I now put a question that the report of the Committee of the Whole House be adopted. Those in favor say and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Bill third reading.
Honorable Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the bill entitled the Landlord and Tenant Bill 2021 be read the third time and do pass.
I now put a question that the bill titled the Landlord Tenant Bill 2021 be read for the third time and do pass. Those in favor say and to the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act entitled the Landlord and Tenant Act 2022.
Congratulations, Honorable Minister. This bill will go a long way in smoothening and guiding the relationship between landlord and tenancy. Thank you, honorable members.
Right Honorable Speaker, if you could allow me,
Yes.
I would like to thank you, the members of the committee, and all my colleagues in Parliament for passing this bill. We register our gratitude to you all, and we do hope that the bill will achieve its objectives, which we have set in the bill. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, once again, I want to thank you so much for your patience. Imata, I'll give you time to speak. You want to appreciate the minister?
Speaker, I think this is a matter we cannot overlook. Right Honorable Speaker, I've been extremely impressed with the contribution and the participation of the minister in driving this debate, because he has understood the position of the committee, and it has made our work very easy. And Right Honorable Speaker, this this bill which has now been passed is very important. It affects all of us. All of us are either tenants or landlords. So I'm really happy that the minister has not made our life difficult. However, I wanted to raise some issues, but I fear the speaker, she has been very rigid in, and Right Honorable Speaker, my husband went to Mwiri Secondary School, and he used to tell me that in Mwiri there were two sections of mathematics class, A and B. And so the teacher would always say, have mercy on the B group. So Right Honorable Speaker, I'm begging you to have mercy over the B group. Because when you tell me, Right Honorable Speaker, when the minister tells me that the tenancy agreement must be in writing or by words of mouth. Now, when you are now in a conflict, how do you justify? And yet this is in the law, so I wanted to challenge that, but being in the big group, I didn't want to raise it, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Cecilia, because I have mercy on the big group, that's why I've allowed you to speak, to raise your issue. And honorable members, we just need to appreciate the big group, especially with the age now. You know what is happening. She's our grandmother in the house. And Honorable Minister, before the Prime Minister comes in, thank you for having knowledge on what you've passed. I really must appreciate, because some people can bring laws here and they don't know what is happening and that, but you really had information, and yet you're new in that ministry. I really want to thank you so much. I want to thank the chairman and the committee in general. Members, I also request you members that the bills that are in your committees, please bring them to the House. And in a special way, I want to thank the Shadow Attorney General for the good work you've done. Now I can see you'll be the next the next Attorney General. Thank you so much. Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Prime Minister, on behalf of the Executive, to thank you in a special way for steering us through where some people had thought it would be so difficult. You simplified, and it was simplified because of your methods of work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I also want to take this opportunity to thank the chairperson of the committee and the committee members for working together and agreeing before coming here. We should carry forward this spirit. But in a special, I want to thank the Shadow Attorney General. Please, thank you for the cooperation. Thank you for the time you have put in. I know politicians are busy, but it has also been a busy weekend for you, being that you come from one area where we had a major national activity, sending off one of our gallant sons. But you created time and you worked together with the committee, the speaker, and also the minister. In a special way, I also want to thank the Minister for Urban Development and Physical Planning, representing the Minister for Lands, Housing and Urban Development. Thank you, like everybody has said before, to understand the subject, both on the side of the tenants, the landlords, but also you as a regulator, and also simplifying our work. Members, I pray that we continue with that spirit. This team has set the bar high. Fellow ministers, let's understand our subjects better to simplify work and easy time and resources for the Ugandans. Thank you so much.
Honorable member, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. You mean a lot to this country, and you mean a lot to me for sitting with me from the time we came up to this time. It's not an easy thing. And thank you, Prime Minister, for appreciating. There are very few who appreciate. I want to thank you. We therefore adjourn the House to 2 tomorrow. Thank you.
Minister, thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been wonderful.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN. Everyone deserves more, which is why MTN Momo is giving you more Senki points on your MTN Momo withdrawals at agent location. Get 150 Senki points for every 1,000 shillings spent in withdrawal fees. More Senki points means you get more free minutes, more free MBs, more free SMSs, and more free Momo Pay shopping. To use your Senki points, dial *141#. Everywhere you go, MTN.
COVID-19 is still here with us. As Professor Maggie Chigozi states, the time is now for all of us to get vaccinated.
When we have one person who's not vaccinated, it affects everybody around them, most especially the ones close to you. Keep your family safe. Anyone right now who's over 18 should go and get vaccinated.
Because of the new COVID-19 circulating variants like Omicron, it is very important for all of us to be fully vaccinated with 2 doses of the same vaccine type. It's only those getting Johnson & Johnson who receive only a single dose to be fully protected.
Even after vaccination, continue to adhere to all SOPs by wearing a mask properly, covering your mouth and nose, washing your hands regularly with soap and clean water, or using an alcohol-based sanitizer, maintaining physical distance of at least 2 meters from others, and avoiding crowds. Echa COVID-19, chija kugwa. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and partners.
Start the year off with My Airtel 4G smartphone. You get to enjoy free 1 GB data valid for a month and 100% bonus data every month for 3 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. This includes free data spread over 3 months worth 86,500 Uganda shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 Uganda shillings only. Visit the nearest Airtel shop and get